The compact crossover segment was arguably started back in the 90s with the introduction of the first ever Toyota RAV4. But as we stand here in the year 2022, this segment may be one of the hottest in the entire automobile market, with over 17 competitors all fighting for the best MPG, best safety features, best styling. So does this brand new restyled 2022 Chevy Equinox RS have the chops to be able to compete with the likes of the Toyota RAV4, Honda CRV, and the Mazda CX-5? Well, that's what we're going to find out in today's video. This is the Chevy Equinox. More specifically, it is the RS trim, which stands for Rally Sport, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Now, believe it or not, this is Chevy's second best-selling vehicle after the Silverado, and it's their best-selling SUV. So the company is betting a lot that customers are gonna love this brand new restyle that's new here for 2022. Now, in case you're wondering, this restyle was actually introduced for the 2021 model year, but as a result of the pandemic, they had to push it out a year. So to kick things off, let's discuss exactly what Chevy changed with this brand new facelift. 2022 brings a mild refresh to the aesthetics. Starting off with the front grille and fascia design, Chevy made it look more upscale with dark chrome trim on the grille, extending into the headlight housing and separating the lights in half. Moving further down, the front end is outfitted with these fake grille inserts and side marker lights, combined with a modified lower grille. The front end now looks more uniform with Chevy's design language in other SUVs like the Traverse, and with hints of the Blazer design styling. No major changes to note on the side of the vehicle. Moving towards the back, there's not as many changes either, but Chevy did update the rear taillight housing to look more modern and match the other Chevy models, and they modified the rear bumper. Pricing for the new Equinox starts at $25,800 for the LS trim and goes all the way up to $31,000 for the Premier trim. However, with additional options and accessories, you can top out your Equinox at just around $40,000. The Premier trim buys you additional features like a hands-free power liftgate, 18-inch wheels, and an upgraded infotainment screen. This particular vehicle is the RS trim, which sits right below the Premier trim and has a starting price of $30,100. My particular vehicle is slightly more equipped with an RS leather seating package, an infotainment package, and an advanced safety package, and has an MSRP of $36,020 after destination. Now, if you are familiar with my car reviews, you'll know that I focus on 5 main categories. That is practicality, safety and security, exterior and interior features and quality. We go over the performance and handling, or when it comes to a crossover, the ride quality, and then we finish it off with some fun and hidden features specific to this vehicle. Now, this particular trim level is the RS trim, but if you are shopping for other trim levels of the Equinox, I still recommend you stick around because most of what I discuss in today's video is not specific to the RS trim level, so you may still learn something new in today's video. Now, before we get started, I want to give a huge thank you and shout out to Chevy for giving me the opportunity to review this vehicle and showcase it on the channel. If you guys are in the market for a brand new Equinox, I do recommend you go to their website at www.chevrolet.com to configure and build your own Equinox with a variety of different interior and exterior color choices. Starting with practicality, let's discuss the cargo volume, starting with the trunk space. Now, this particular trim level does have an automatic automatic liftgate, which is really nice to have, but if you get the base Equinox, you're gonna have to manually open and close it. Starting with the cargo volume, it's really not too bad, but it is a little bit less than some of its competition. Behind the second row, you actually have 29.9 cubic feet of space. If you fold down that second row, you get up to 63.9 cubic feet of space. Now, in comparison, the Toyota RAV4 has 37.5 cubic feet of space behind the second row, and the Honda CRV has 39.2 cubic feet of space. So both of them have a little bit more space behind the second row, but this is more similar to the Mazda CX-5, which has about 30.9 cubic feet of space. And I will say, I used to own a 2018 Toyota RAV4, and I don't know exactly what the proportions were of that vehicle, but it did seem like the trunk was slightly larger. It seemed like the liftgate was longer, so you had a lower load floor, and you seem to have way more space behind the second row. But at the same time, I will say this is probably just as much room as you need for a couple roller bags and enough to take it on a road trip. So keep that in mind if you are shopping for this vehicle. A couple items to note is there is a handle located in the cargo space that makes it very easy to fold down the rear seats from the trunk. Also, the Equinox has a decent amount of space under the floor to store items out of sight like a laptop or a tablet. And the Equinox comes with a 17-inch spare tire. That's really nice to have in this day and age where most spare tires are being phased out for fix-a-flat kits and air compressors. Okay, now let's get into the second row, which is very easy to do as in all crossovers. You can simply just slide in. That's one of the big benefits of owning a crossover. You don't have to scrunch down or climb up. You kind of just sit down in your regular standing height and you can get into a crossover. Definitely an advantage there. Now, the ride height, in case you're wondering, is about 6.9 inches. So just enough for some snowy conditions or maybe some very, very light off-roading. Now, sitting back here, it's actually a very comfortable place to sit. You've actually got plenty of legroom considering this is a compact crossover. Chevy says there's 39.9 inches of legroom behind the second row. And in case you're wondering, that's actually about 2 inches larger than the Toyota RAV4. You also have a good spot to be able to slide your feet underneath the passenger seat. So overall, very, very comfortable. And I will say these leather seats are also very comfortable to sit in. This is definitely a vehicle that would be great for long road trips, and I think Chevy did a great job. Now, this particular color option is the jet black leather, but depending on what trim level you get, you can either get cloth or a maple colored leather that matches with the front dashboard. Now, the one thing I want to discuss back here is this center console from the front row. I do think it protrudes a little bit too much forward, but I think part of the reason they did that, and this is something I compliment Chevy on, is the fact that they added air vents in the second row, and I believe that is standard even on the base Equinox. I also really liked the fact that they put 2 charging ports, USB charging ports back here, and they also added a power outlet where you can just plug in a game system or just a regular household outlet and use that in this vehicle. That's a very nice feature to have as well. I do think that sitting in the middle seat may be a little bit tight or uncomfortable, but I will commend Chevy for being able to cut back on this center console a little bit so you can actually put your feet back here and not feel like you're protruding into the left or the right side. Another thing I will note is the fact that there is no transmission tunnel in this second row. So it's a very flat loading floor, and even my Toyota RAV4 back from 2018 had a small little hump in the middle, which made it a little bit more difficult to actually sit in that middle seat. So having that being a flat loading floor makes it easier to fit 5 passengers in this vehicle. Now, sitting in the front row, the seats are almost as comfortable as the back, but I do think they are a little bit firmer than the second row. I will also say this headrest feels like it's made of plywood. Now, I don't know if that's because this is a brand new vehicle, so it kind of needs to soften up over time, but I do wish they made this headrest a little bit softer. Now, we're going to talk about the interior here in just a little bit, but I briefly wanted to talk about the practicality of this 8-inch infotainment screen. Now, my tester comes with the upgraded $895 option that upgrades the screen size from 7 inches on the base trim to this 8-inch version, and I would recommend it, mainly because of the fact that the 7-inch has this thick black plastic surrounding the screen, making it look kind of out of place and kind of cheap. And so I really think the $895 is worth it because then you get a more uniform appearance in the dashboard. And I will say, although 8 inches does seem small here in the year 2022, it's really not that far off from its competition. The Honda CRV has a smaller screen, the RAV4 is just about an inch larger, and the only class leader when it comes to screen size is the Mazda CX-5 with over 10 inches of screen real estate. Now, I will say that this screen is probably one of the best softwares I've used on any vehicle. The screen software is extremely responsive. With the click of a button, it will change the menu. It's very easy to swipe and scroll, and probably just as easy as any of the best smartphones on the market, and probably better than the Ford system that I have in my Bronco. Now, the other options this vehicle comes with is Spotify, Pandora Radio, you've got Wall Street Journal and Washington Post, and this does come with wireless and wired Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So it just increases the functionality of this vehicle, and I do like that Chevy put that into this Equinox. Now, this vehicle does come with voice activation, and it works somewhat pretty okay. It was able to change the stations for me, but it doesn't do anything advanced like change the temperature or increase or decrease the volume. That's something that they did not include with this voice activation system. It's simply just your audio, your navigation, and just your phone settings. Okay, now let's talk about powertrain. As of the year 2022, you can no longer get the 2-liter turbocharged engine. You really only have one engine and one transmission option, and that is a 1.5-liter turbocharged engine and a 6-speed automatic transmission. Now, power output is 170 horsepower and 203 pound-feet of torque, which is slightly higher torque than some of its competitors, but slightly lower horsepower. So just take your pick on which one you'd prefer. Now, we'll talk about the performance and handling when we sit behind the driver's seat and take it for a test drive, but it's really not too bad given the size of this vehicle. Now, I do wish that Chevy threw in some sort of hybrid powertrain on this vehicle. That way you can better compete with the likes of the Honda CRV and Toyota RAV4, and you could get slightly better gas mileage. In case you're wondering, the city MPG is 25 and the highway is 30 for a combined 27, which isn't too bad for a vehicle of this size. The nice thing is Chevy does allow you to get front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive regardless of what trim level you pick. And if you're curious about towing capacity, the Chevy Equinox can tow 1,500 pounds. In terms of reliability, the Equinox received a great rating from US News at 85 out of 100. That's compared to 84 out of 100 for the Honda CRV and 81 out of 100 for the Toyota RAV4 and Mazda CX-5. Chevy does cover this vehicle with a 3-year 36,000-mile bumper-to-bumper warranty and a 5-year 60,000-mile powertrain warranty. So in terms of reliability, you should be in the clear when buying this vehicle new. Now, when it comes to practicality, I would rate this vehicle a 5 out of 10, which is similar to what I would rate some of its competitors. Now, this obviously isn't as practical as a minivan or a pickup truck, but it's a pretty practical vehicle. You could easily fit 4 or 5 adults for a road trip, and you have plenty of space in the cargo area for large suitcases. Now, there are a couple things notching this vehicle down when it's compared to its competitors. That has to do with the cargo volume still being slightly smaller than the class leaders like the Honda CR-V and Toyota RAV4. I also do wish they integrated some sort of hybrid powertrain to increase the practicality from an MPG standpoint. And lastly, even though I really do enjoy the 8-inch touchscreen, and I think Chevy did a fantastic job on its responsiveness and clarity, with this being a restyled version, I would hope that they would have increased the screen size to beat its competition until the next generation of the other vehicles come out. But other than that, if none of those things bother you, which they probably shouldn't, this is a very practical vehicle with tons of space for you and your family. Now let's talk about safety and security. On the safety side, even the base level Equinox comes with lots of different features to keep you and your family safe. And if you choose to upgrade, you can actually pay for additional features that we're just about to discuss. All Chevy Equinox models come equipped with Chevy Safety Assist, which includes automatic emergency braking, front pedestrian braking, lane keep assist with lane departure warning, forward collision alert, automatic high beams, and following distance indicator. You also get front, side, and head curtain airbags. If you choose to upgrade your safety, you can get the optional adaptive cruise control, rear cross traffic alert, lane change and side blind zone alert, 360-degree camera, and front and rear park assist on higher trim levels. If you get the Premier package, you can opt for automatic parking assist, which will actually hunt for a parking spot nearby and park your vehicle by itself.
The only safety feature this vehicle does not come with is lane centering assist. That, paired with adaptive cruise control, will essentially accelerate, decelerate, and steer your car on the highway, keeping with the flow of traffic. Just so you know, Chevy Super Cruise nearly self-driving system is not available on the Equinox. In case you are curious, the Equinox received an overall 5 stars in safety ratings according to the NHTSA.
When it comes to safety and security, I would rate this vehicle an 8 out of 10. The only thing really notching this vehicle down is the fact that you do not get adaptive cruise control on the base level Equinox like you do with the base level Toyota RAV4. Additionally, this vehicle does not come with any hands-free technology like you get with Chevy Super Cruise, but I have a feeling that will come on future models. Overall, this vehicle comes with lots of safety features right out of the gate, especially at a base starting price of $26,000. Okay, now let's discuss the exterior and interior features and quality, and we're gonna start it off with the exterior. And I personally really like what Chevy did with this facelifted version here in 2022. It really has this upscale, premium, handsome look to it, and I know I'm gonna get hate in the comments, but it's kind of got a Cadillac-like vibe from the front end. I particularly like what they did, especially in this RS trim with this black chrome, the black grille, and the black bow tie. I also really like what they did with this hood accent, where it has this angled look to it coming towards the front end, and along with the body lines that run across the side of the vehicle. It really does have this more muscular, angular stance to it, giving it a premium look and arguably better than some of its competitors, but looks are subjective, so I will leave that up to you. Now, I've already discussed what the facelift included, but now let's discuss specifically what's included with the RS trim level, because that does change the aesthetics of this vehicle.
For those that don't know, RS stands for Rally Sport, so they essentially add some sport touches to the exterior and interior. Now, I know what you're going to ask next. Unfortunately, the RS does not impact performance. But the RS does include some styling cues like a blacked out grille and surrounding chrome, red RS badging, black Chevrolet bow tie emblems, and blacked out Equinox badging. You also get blacked out chrome throughout the side of the vehicle along with the roof rails, and it also includes these 19-inch dark Android painted wheels. Moving to the back, the RS trim also adds the black Equinox emblem and the red RS trim badging. It also provides a programmable power liftgate, LED tail lamps, unique RS interior with red stitching and black ice chrome accents, a leather-wrapped steering wheel, dual-zone automatic climate control, and remote vehicle starter system. Regardless of what trim you select, the Equinox comes with a nice sculpted appearance with LED headlights and aluminum wheels and lots of different color options. I like that Chevy uses very minimal plastic cladding throughout the front and rear fascia and side skirts. Even the lowest level LS trim has a nice overall appearance, and it doesn't look like you are choosing the most thrifty option. One thing I'd like to mention is Chevy's option to upgrade the front end to feature an illuminated bow tie for $435. That would be a personal must-have if I were building this vehicle.
Now, I would rate the exterior an 8 out of 10. There's nothing particularly controversial about it for people to not really like the looks. And I understand looks are subjective, but I would argue this is one of the best looking compact crossovers on the market. One thing I will note is the rear quarter panel window reminds me a lot of a first generation Lexus RX 300. I really doubt Chevy used any of its design cues to mimic that vehicle, but just something I noticed that I thought I would share. Now, before we step into the vehicle, I briefly want to talk about the key fob, which is just your standard Chevy key fob that you must be used to if you're used to any Chevy vehicle. You have your lock and unlock, you have your remote start, you have your automatic lift gate by pushing that button twice, and then you have your panic button. And to get into the vehicle, you push the button to lock it and also push to unlock the vehicle.
Moving inside, the vehicle carries over its somewhat conservative but premium styling. There were no particular changes with the styling of the interior for the 2022 facelift aside from additional features. Starting with the door panel, you have nice soft touch materials near the back and hard touch plastic near the front. Moving downward, you have some storage options and a place for a cup holder. I do wish that Chevy made the storage area a little bit bigger, but it's forgivable given the size. Moving towards the seats, you can get 3 different options in the Equinox. premium cloth, black leather, and black mixed with maple sugar leather. You can get them heated and ventilated on the higher trim levels and heated rear seats as well. These are optioned with the jet black leather seating that runs $1,580 but includes the Bose premium 7-speaker audio system. I like the Bose system, but it does sound like the sound is a little biased towards the front of the vehicle and is not equally proportional in the cabin. I personally prefer the optional jet black / maple sugar perforated leather feature on the Premier trim, but I also like how the jet black interior is accented with the red on this RS trim. Moving inside the door, you'll find your buttons to control your headlights and instrument cluster. The steering wheel is nicely leather wrapped on this RS trim and is nice to touch and feels good in the hands. Buttons include your cruise control along with the heated steering wheel option and menu options in the instrument cluster. There are also buttons located behind the steering wheel to change stations from your presets and adjust the volume. Moving upwards, you'll find the upgraded 4.2-inch instrument cluster display that has many different features including your current speed, oil life, fuel economy, and much more. The instrument cluster is actually the same size as that in the RAV4 but smaller than that in the Honda CR-V. I do wish that Chevy offered a full-screen digital display like what you would find in the Volkswagen Tiguan. Moving towards the center display, I like how they integrated this into the dashboard. I personally think that the RAV4 looks a little odd with its thick bezel and how it protrudes above the dashboard. This one looks a little better designed, and as mentioned earlier, it's very easy to use. It has Bluetooth audio, Apple CarPlay, and Android Auto, and plenty of nice features. Moving downwards, you have an open storage bin with several USB, auxiliary, and 12-volt power outlets, and the upgraded trims come with a wireless charger. This one is just a cubby. Moving back, you have your all-wheel drive on button that ensures power is sent to all 4 wheels, and a button to turn off your parking sensors. You have your 2 cup holders, a shifter with manual shift options, and an electronic parking brake. You have a smaller storage cubby followed by the center arm console, which has an additional little cubby for glasses or pens. The console cover is on the harder side, but it is leather wrapped. The nice leather trim carries over to the passenger side and has a nice soft touch material to it. No sunroof on this vehicle, but if you option for it, you will get a large panoramic sunroof that looks beautiful and is not common to see on compact crossovers of this price point. Moving towards the back, there's not too much more to discuss. You have the same soft touch materials on the door panels, 2 cup holders in the center armrest, and several USB ports and power adapters to help with devices.
Now, when it comes to the interior, there's nothing particularly amazing that stands out, and so for that reason, I would rate it a 7 out of 10. That being said, it is a very good-looking interior and arguably better than some of its competitors. I will also give Chevy props for using some really nice materials throughout the cabin. Everything from soft touch on the door to the leather seating surfaces to everything being very well laid out and easy to reach. From the infotainment screen having very good accessibility and good options to the second row having rear air vents and tons of different charging ports. Chevy obviously listened to its customers when it was building the inside of the cabin, and if you're looking for a decent looking interior with good build quality, the Chevy Equinox should be on your shopping list. Alright, so chances are if you're buying one of these vehicles, you're likely going to be sitting behind the driver's seat for a long period of time. So now let's discuss the performance and handling and ride quality of this vehicle, assuming you're going to be daily driving it. First thing I want to note is the fact that the interior cabin is very well laid out, but I will say there is quite a big blind spot located behind that rear quarter panel, but that's why it is nice to have blind spot monitoring, which comes standard on this RS trim. Okay, so as we discussed earlier, this vehicle comes with a 1.5-liter turbocharged engine that produces 170 horsepower and 203 pound-feet of torque. Now, we're about to get onto a freeway on-ramp so I can show you the acceleration and passing power of this vehicle and compare it to something like a Toyota RAV4, which comes with a 2.5-liter naturally aspirated engine. But before we do that, I want to talk about some of the first impressions I have sitting inside of the cabin. First and foremost, the ride quality is very, very soft and very comfortable. I could easily see myself driving this vehicle on long road trips, and not having any issues with my back or maybe my legs feeling sore. This is a very, very comfortable cabin. The only thing I will note is it does seem like the seats don't come out far enough to support my thighs. And so I do see that being a problem, especially if you are taller than I am. I'm around 5'9". Another thing to note is this vehicle really does soak up bumps very well. I've driven this on some pretty rough roads and it's handled it a lot better than I expected for a pretty entry-level compact crossover. Considering this is not a luxury SUV, I would have expected it to be a little bit bumpier, but we're about to drive over some train tracks and I'll show you what it looks like on camera. And it really isn't jarring or uncomfortable to drive. It's a pretty comfortable vehicle to ride in, and I wouldn't have any problems taking this on the road trip. Another thing to point out is the interior cabin is actually really quiet. I would say it's above average for a vehicle of this price point. I can barely hear what's going on around me, and once we get on the freeway, I'll discuss some of those things as well. Okay, so here we are about to enter a freeway on-ramp, and one thing I do think this vehicle should come with is some sort of different driving modes. There is no sport mode, there's no eco mode, it's just regular, and then you can shift it into a manual shift mode. But other than that, there is no sport mode. So just in the regular mode, I've got my foot straight to the floor, and it was okay. Definitely not the quickest in acceleration, but probably somewhat comparable to its competitors. It's maybe a little bit on the slower side, but once we get up to speed, to the highway speeds, this vehicle handles a lot quicker and is much more agile than from a 0 to 30 or a 0 to 60 standpoint. Let's do another acceleration and see how it performs. Foot down to the floor. And we're at 60. So it does take quite a bit of time for it to accelerate up to the speed limit, but I will say that once you are at the speed limit, it's a little bit easier to maneuver. Now, unfortunately, we are here in rush hour traffic, so it's going to be hard to weave in and out of traffic and show the acceleration, but it's got enough passing power for sure. Now, it's obviously a 1.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, which is a pretty small engine, especially for a crossover SUV, but it doesn't feel sluggish to me. I will say my 2.5 liter Toyota RAV4 from 2018 may have been a little bit quicker from 0 to 60, but in terms of passing power on the freeway, it's probably about the same. In fact, maybe this Equinox is a tad quicker from, say, 60 to 70 than my naturally aspirated 2.5 liter RAV4. In terms of braking, they're actually fantastic. You've got disc brakes all around and they work really well. They're perfectly fine for a vehicle of this size and weight. Now, as you can tell, we're here driving around 60 miles an hour, and I can easily have a conversation with somebody else in the passenger seat or even in the second row seats without being disrupted.
Oh,
did you see that? That was a forward collision alert that came through what appears to be a heads-up display, even though it's not a heads-up display, it's only for safety purposes. So let's talk about safety features. I was going to discuss something else, but let's talk safety while we're at it. This thing does come packed with lots of safety features. You do have lane keep assist on the steering wheel, which I have turned on, and you'll see it with the diagram on the infotainment screen. And although it doesn't keep you centered in the lane like with the previous review I did of a Kia Carnival, where it actually kept you centered in between the two lanes and guided you, this one actually just kind of pushes you back towards the center, but it won't keep you in that position, and you're going to have to hang on to the steering wheel and actually steer the vehicle. But nonetheless, it is nice to have, especially if you're distracted or the lanes are kind of mismatched. It may help you keep yourself in the lane, and as you can see, a collision alert system, so make sure that you're paying attention to the road when you're driving on the freeway. Now, back to what I was saying earlier in terms of quietness, the cabin is very quiet and very easy to have a conversation with somebody else. I think this is probably one of the best in its class because my RAV4 was a little bit louder on the inside. You wouldn't hear any rattles or anything like that, but I don't think that the sound insulation was as good in my RAV4 as it is in this current generation Equinox. Now, in terms of maneuverability and compact sizing, this is very easy to get used to. There's really no complaints or no concerns about this being a massive vehicle that's hard to get accustomed to. Driving in it for about a half hour, you get used to the proportions and you don't really have any concerns with it. It's not like driving a large 3-row SUV or a pickup truck. And if you really need it, you can turn the camera feature on, and it actually works even in highway speeds, which is uncommon. Most other competitors do not allow you to turn your camera system on when you're driving on the freeway, but this allows you to at least view your tow hitch if you do have that as an option, and that way you can monitor what's going on even at highway speeds. Now, in terms of steering and handling on curves, it's pretty much what you'd expect. It's obviously not great or like a sports car or anything like that, even in this RS trim level, but it's not bad. And that has to do with the fact that the body isn't really very large. It's a compact crossover, so it's pretty nimble, pretty easy to maneuver, even in corners at higher speeds, but it's definitely not gonna handle like a sports car. Aside from the lack of sport modes, I will note that I think this vehicle has a pretty weak turning radius. Just doing a U-turn, as I will do right now, just to show you, it seems like this vehicle should have a better turning radius than it does. Considering this is a compact crossover, you would expect a vehicle of this size to be able to maneuver a little bit better. Overall, I would rate performance, ride quality, and handling a 6 out of 10. The few things notching this down is the fact that this vehicle only has 170 horsepower and 203 pound-feet of torque. The 0 to 60 times are a little bit weak, and it may feel a little bit sluggish when you're trying to accelerate. Now, that being said, when it comes to passing power, this vehicle has plenty of get up on the freeway. And when you get into the higher RPM limits, that's really when this turbo has some of that torque to be able to propel you forward and be able to pass individuals on the highway. But if you're buying this vehicle for overall good daily drivability, quiet cabin noise, and comfortable ride quality, then you can't go wrong with the 2022 Chevy Equinox. It's just a little bit down on performance when it's compared to some of its competitors. Nonetheless, there is still plenty of power to be able to get you from point A to point B without putting you into a dangerous situation. Okay, now for the fun part where we talk about some of the fun and hidden features specific to the Chevy Equinox.
The first feature this vehicle comes with is active aero grille shutters, which will open and close in order to improve fuel efficiency and aerodynamics. I also want to talk about how much I love the 360-degree camera system. It comes with a ton of different options, angles, guidelines, and even a place for you to see exactly how to back in your trailer. This feature is very helpful for navigating this vehicle into tight parking spots. My kudos to Chevy for designing a very good system. I also like the fact that this vehicle comes with wireless and wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto even on the base trim level. Let's briefly talk about how many cup holders come with this vehicle. There's 2 in the center console, 2 more in the door pockets on the front row. There are 2 more cup holders in the door pockets on the second row, and you also have 2 more cup holders in the center armrest in the back. That's a total of 8 cup holders for 5 passengers. The same applies for USB ports. There's 2 located in the second row underneath the air vents. There's 2 more located in the front row underneath the center infotainment screen, and 2 additional hidden USB ports in the center arm console. That's a total of 6 USB ports for a vehicle with 5 individuals. The next feature is that this vehicle comes with a 120 volt household outlet so that you can plug in video games or charge devices in the back. I also like that this vehicle comes with an acoustic windshield, insulating the interior from a lot of the exterior noises. I also find it funny that this vehicle comes with an umbrella holder in the passenger and driver door panel. That's a really nice touch that I haven't seen on very many other compact crossovers. Next feature I really like is that this vehicle has a light inside of the center arm console so you can still see inside of that compartment even when it's dark outside. I don't get why more manufacturers don't do this. I also like the buttons located behind the steering wheel that control your volume and your seek functions for the radio. I like that they are hidden in the back, which declutters the front surface of the steering wheel, but still gives you that functionality. The next feature I like is that you can adjust the height of the liftgate from the front seats. That way, if you're parking in an area with a very low ceiling, you don't have to worry about damaging your liftgate, and you can actually set the proper height from the front row. There are a lot of vehicles with these options, but most of those controls are on the actual liftgate, which kind of defeats the purpose if you've already parked the vehicle in an area with a low ceiling. The Equinox makes it super simple and gives you great accessibility to adjust that height.
So that is everything you need to know about the 2022 Chevy Equinox. So what are my overall thoughts? Well, if you're looking for one of the best looking, most upscale compact crossovers that comes packed with tons of safety features, even on the base trim level, pretty decent MPG, and above average reliability, then I'd recommend you keep the Chevy Equinox on your shopping list. Now, I do feel that Chevy held back some features for a next generation model. Features like a larger infotainment screen, an all-digital instrument cluster, and a hybrid powertrain would have been nice to have on this facelift, but unfortunately it's not available. Now, would I recommend waiting for the next generation model? No, because it's likely several years out, and Chevy has hinted it's going to be fully electric. So this may likely be the very last internal combustion Equinox that you can buy. And if you do buy this Equinox, I have a feeling you're going to be very happy. It is a very good looking SUV that comes packed with tons of features and is overall a very good daily driver. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Thank you for stopping by. If this is your first time checking out the channel, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. That way you can stay tuned on all of the weekly videos. And until next time, everybody, I hope you stay schwazy, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day.